Hello, hello. Happy Thursday. I know that I am feeling worlds better given that the sun is actually out here in Nashville today. Okay, so we are in the midst of a really weird time. This coronavirus is pretty much everywhere, and you can't really have a conversation without talking about it. And so I know that this virus has brought on a lot of fears, especially like fears of the unknown. I know that there are a lot of people questioning what is going to happen in the real estate market, which is, that's something that's on a lot of people's minds. They're trying to decide, do they continue to move forward with their real estate plans? Do they put them on hold? Because I know that a lot of people are all of a sudden starting to compare this to 2008. I also know that a lot of people, I understand the news cycle. I used to work in news, and I get that there's headlines are sensational. They're meant for you to click on them, and I know that a lot of times when you read them, they can feel like doom and gloom, or maybe you're not even reading the article. Maybe you're just scanning social media and you see the title of an article and it implies all this bad stuff, and so you don't want to go and take a look at it. So what I'm here today to do is to kind of help debunk some of these headlines, or really like give you the story behind them and why all these sensational headlines should not scare you, and what you just need to know about the real estate market moving forward with the coronavirus. So I know that right now there's a big one out there and it's basically saying that Goldman Sachs forecasts the largest drop in almost 100 years. So of course, when you hear that, that sounds really scary, right? And while the headline is true, there's more to the story than what you're seeing in just that headline. So it's not reflecting the full essence of the forecast that they're given. So yes, like they're predicting we are going to have a really tough first half of this year, but they're also saying that yes, the economy is going to bounce back, and they are predicting a strong second half of the year. Basically, they're forecasting that while it is, again, taking a hit right now, that it's going to be up 12% in the third quarter and up another 10% in the fourth. And so Astro may fuss because there's construction being done around my place. So just giving everybody a heads up if that happens. But they're basically just saying, what Goldman Sachs is predicting is lining up with research that comes from the John Burns Consulting Agency. And it basically says, like, historical analysis showed us that pandemics are usually V-shaped, sharp recessions that recover quickly enough to provide little damage to home prices. And some very cutting-edge search engine analysis by our information management team showed the current slowdown is playing out similarly thus far. So that's great to know. So yes, I'm not saying we're not going to take a hit, but we will take the hit, and then they're predicting that we will rebound in the second half of the year. Then we also have the Fed president predicting 30% unemployment, and that number sounds atrocious, and it sounds scary. And the statement was actually made by James Bullard, who is the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. And so what he actually said was that it could reach 30%. But we also need to take a deeper dive into what he said in conjunction with that. And so he said in Bloomberg News, this is a planned, organized, partial shutdown of the U.S. economy in the second quarter. But the overall goal is to keep everyone, households, businesses whole with government support. He also went on to say that I would see the third quarter as a transitional quarter, with the fourth quarter and first quarter of 2021 being quite robust, as he says, as Americans are making up for the lost spending. So again, it's in times like this, everything feels like really crazy, but they're all saying, like, we're going to get through this. We're going to come out on the other side. This is not something that's predicted to last indefinitely. And it's also just something else that I really wanted to dive into, because again, I know that a lot of people are concerned what's happening, especially with how quickly this all has escalated. And so another thing that I really wanted to point out is I've been really trying to stay on top of what's happening listening to podcasts, reading articles from industry experts, because again, the last thing that I want to ever do is misguide somebody or give them bad information and then they make a real estate decision that wasn't in their best interest. So with that said, when it comes to real estate, they're basically saying that this is not like 2008. And it's easy to feel that way because a lot of people still have a PTSD effect from everything that went down. But in 2008, the economy meltdown came from within the economy. It was a real estate market meltdown. It was a mortgage market meltdown. And things that led, like there were several factors that led to that, including loose lending. Like the mortgage lenders, they have learned from their mistakes. They are not doing any sort of subprime lending these days. It's almost like you essentially have to like give away your firstborn child in order to get a mortgage these days. So you have that. And then on top of that, we have, back then there was a lot of inventory on the market. And so when things started to melt down, people were just selling off their homes, trying to get them gone. And like those took a dramatic hit. Like normally in order to keep like a fairly normal, stable real estate market, you need about 6 months of inventory. Back then it was 8+ months. So like people were, their homes were just sitting there trying to get them gone. And so that like helped, caused this meltdown that happened. Right now, nationwide, we're actually seeing an inventory shortage. There is a big buyer demand and there's not enough homes to meet the buyer demand. And we're seeing that especially here in Nashville. There's still a strong buyer demand. And I realize like some people do not want to go out and be, they don't know the homes that they're walking into. If any family members there have been exposed, that maybe there are germs or places. Like I totally understand that. And the good news is with technology, there are ways around that these days. But there is overall a still strong buyer demand. There are groups that I'm a part of where I am still seeing buyer needs and buyers are ready to still act now. And that's not predicted to go away. Another thing to like why it's not like 2008, because what's happening now with our economy is from an outside source. It's from the coronavirus. It's not from within the economy like the mortgage and real estate meltdown that happened. So with that, there's been articles that come out that are actually likening our economy right now in our reactionary state and that there it goes. But they're basically comparing it to what happened after 2000 or 9/11. So basically saying like how we're reacting. Astro, can you come here? There's people all around. He's trying to keep me safe. He's trying to do his job. Hey, come here. But basically saying a lot of the consumer discretionary parts of the economy, so travel, leisure, hospitality, all of those are taking a major hit right now, entertainment, because of this virus. And so they're basically saying that, anytime something major happens, the stock market always reacts, but it does always come back. And so that's something that people can take comfort in, is the fact that like, while we may have a rough couple of months, everything is going to come back and we are going to end up being okay. And again, real estate is still moving forward. There is still, like I said, that strong buyer demand. So we are going to be okay. Real estate is on much more stable ground now than it ever was in 2008. So ultimately, if there are concerns about how to go about the buying or selling process right now in terms of making sure keeping the health and safety of your family intact when it comes to that, please feel free to reach out to me. I have several safety and health protocols in place to make sure that we are doing the best to not only protect you, but to protect others. Because again, the last thing that we ever want to do is to put anyone at risk, because ultimately the important part right now is staying home as much as possible and staying safe so that we can get this thing over with. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to get back to normal life, but I'm also trying to take these moments right now and just really appreciate the things. Like I was just thinking about, I was going through photos the other night and looking at a family vacation or looking at like photos from a football game. And so while I really miss those things and I really look forward to being able to get back to those things, there are still blessings within this uncertain time. And you know, how often do you actually get the opportunity to have a forced time of slowdown? So I hope that this was helpful. Again, I'm going to be posting a video that gives a bigger breakdown on just the coronavirus and the effect on the real estate market. And it'll just give you more of an in-depth look as to why this is not something that everyone should, this is just basically why people don't need to be comparing the real estate market right now as to what happened in 2008. So if you guys ever have any questions, again, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions and just kind of really be your guide through this time. I hope that everyone has a really safe time doing self-quarantines, and I will go ahead and see you next week.